Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I made this typer effect animation to reveal some code on this website I recently built for a client. So this client came to me just a few months ago and they had a pretty simple brief. They gave me these Figma files and they wanted this website built out pretty quickly. It was less than 10 days that they needed the work done by, and they wanted to add some animations. Now, the simple solution to this would have been to do something along this lines where you build out the site, it looks beautiful, and then you add in some nice, easy animations where things, reveal or fade in on scroll. But when I was looking at the site and looking at the complexity of this, the designer put a lot of work into each of these elements. So I decided that I was going to reverse engineer what was going on here. Since I had all the basic elements, I knew I could target everything. I could see exactly what the designer did. So that's when I decided to build out this typer animation. So inside here in Webflow, I'm going to just give you a basic overview of the structure of this particular element. So the site, the element has basically a wrapper, and that wrapper is going to be the animation trigger. And inside the wrapper, I've got multiple rows, and inside that row is set to relative. And inside the row, or the div block with the class of code row, is a text element. And then inside the text element we've got some styling, some spans, and then this overlay which is set to absolute, which is giving the illusion that our text is hidden. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to display none this overlay, and you can see all this text here is shown. So as I said, we've just got our div, which is set to relative, text element inside. Then each of the highlighted pieces of text, I added just some span and gave each of those spans a class, and that allowed me to style out the site exactly how the designer wanted it. So just go in here and I'll have a quick look at the animation. And there's a lot going on here, but it's not that complex. It's just repetitive. So what it is that the overlay is already initially set to 0, and then after a certain period of time it triggers to 100%. So it moves to 100% and moves off screen, and each of the elements are then triggered one after another. So you can see here that what I'm targeting the individual elements, I'm not targeting the class. So I'll move over to a new page and show you exactly how I did this. So I'm inside here in Webflow, and I've already set up this div. I've just dropped a div in here. I've given it the class of code wrapper, given it a background color, and just styled a bit of a border here just in keeping with the design. And I have given it a width of just over 40 rem and a height of 30 rem. This will change as the design goes on, and given it an overflow of none. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in some padding. And then we're going to set this up that we've got flex direction, vertical, and aligned to the left. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in a div, and this div block I'm going to give it the class of code row. And inside this, so this div block has got a class of code row. I'm also going to set the overflow to overflow is going to be visible, but I'm going to set the position to relative. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a text element, and this is going to be called code text. I've already added a bit of styling to this, so just to keep in keeping with the design. And I'm going to just type in this piece of text here. So I copied this over, and you can see here that we've got a span wrapped across 3 pieces of this piece of text, and that's what's styling it. So the span here, I've just given the span a class, and each of those classes I've styled, and that's what's giving it this nice styling here. The next thing that I did then was I added a div over everything, and I gave that the class of code overlay, and this has got a position of absolute, and I've given it the exact same color as the background here. So this gives the illusion that this code is missing. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make this look as if the text is starting to appear. So if this piece of code, this div block, is just above, and we can display it, show it like that. We can play around with what we're trying to do. So if you think that this is going to be the trigger, the code wrapper, and we're targeting this overlay, what we're trying to do, if I go down here to our transform, we're trying to move it across the screen like that. So you can see here that if this is set to position 0, leave this as a %, and then I move this slowly all the way over to 100%, it looks like the text is revealing. So we're just going to use this idea and how we're going to set up our animation inside Webflow. So I'm going to click on the code wrapper. I'm going to go over here to the top right, click on element trigger, and we're going to use scroll into view, and then we're going to start an animation, and we're going to make a new animation. I'm going to call this code, just call it code show. Code animation. Now with the code animation, we're going to target the code overlay element, and we're going to start it off in position 0%, and we're going to set this to the initial state, and then we're going to move it 100%. I'm just going to press play and see what happens. So see straight away it looks like our code is being typed out. So if we get this code row element, and duplicate that, we've got 2, maybe let's make 3. Let's see what happens now when we test our... Okay, so everything happens at the same time. So what's going on here? If you go in here, you can see that we're targeting the class, so that means that everything with this class code overlay is going to be affected. So I'm going to change this to element, and now only the top one is being affected. So I'm going to go back here, choose our trigger, choose the next code overlay element, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to go from 0% to 100%. And we're going to change that from class to selected element and do the same thing. Now you can see we've got our 3 lines of text moving at different times. So it looks like it's been typed out. So I'm going to set this up properly and then explain exactly what we've done. So you can see here that I built out the code design here a little bit more, and I added in these cool little code lines which are indenting the pieces of text in the same way that you would see when you're writing code. and just added a few along depending on the design, and had different code stylings here, some span stylings in keeping with the design. So I'm going to go back in, click our trigger here, go back into our animations, and we're going to keep going. So we've got down to this particular element here, and we're just going to keep moving these over 100%. Making sure that we're selecting the element and moving all of these over by 100%. Might be easier if we display the block. Keep going. Just test that, see how it's looking. Yep, it's looking quite good. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll be back to you in 1 second. So I got the rest of these animations in. I'm just going to test it now and see how things are looking. It's looking good. That's great. So, but there is a few little things that I would definitely try and fix. So you can see everything is working at the same time. So I'm going to maybe make put everything down to maybe half the speed, 0.3. There we go. That's looking a bit better. But there's probably some of these that are looking a little bit unnatural, so I might make this 0.5, make it look like someone's thinking. And the if else statement, usually people are thinking when they do write out an if else. And then these ones here are a little bit longer, so maybe we'll type them to 0.6 because it'll take someone a little bit longer to write out that amount. We'll go 0.5. Let's see how this all works. Nice, so there you have it. This is looking pretty good. Preview. And then one more time, see if it works on the trigger. And that's it, and you can play around with the timing of it to make sure it looks more natural. I'm going to leave a link to this in the description so you can clone it, and yeah, have fun with it. Thanks.